So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna start with our wrist cars. So the wrist doesn't do as much as most people think. Most of the time they say, let's do wrist circles, and people go right like this, right? But this is actually a lot coming from the elbow. My forearm is moving up and down. So we're gonna isolate the wrists here. So I'm gonna take my hands, I'm gonna start palm up. I'm gonna point my pinkies towards one another. So I'm kind of closing this angle on the side here. And then I'm gonna scoop down, let my fingers come out to the side. So now I'm in extension, and then I'm gonna switch and squeeze thumb side, which doesn't have that much range of motion. So thumb side, and then I come up into flexion, which is gonna be this one. So, and then we come back where we started, and then we retrace our steps. Whatever you wanna train today, I would take this pronation if you're like doing handstands and push-ups, supination if you're doing a lot of bracket grip. I'm gonna start a 2-minute timer. The goal is we wanna feel a stretch through this inside of our forearm as we put our wrist into extension. The extensor muscles are shortening and the flexor muscles on the back are lengthening. So you can scoot your palms back until you find a nice stretch on the inside of the wrist and forearm. And we're just gonna hold this for 2 minutes. And you can sit any which way. It's actually gonna be a lot more comfortable to sit this way, but either way works, as long as we have a nice stretch through the wrist or the back of the forearm, and we're just gonna hold this for 2 minutes. Stay where you are in your passive stretch while I talk through this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start pushing through the top of our palm. So right where we have all of our nice pole calluses, we're gonna press that hand into the floor as if we're trying to move out of extension against the floor. It's not gonna happen because we're blocked here, so we're stuck in a stretch by the floor, but we're gonna add some tension and load up these stretched fibers of the back of the forearm. I'm gonna cue you up to ramp up incrementally, so we're not just gonna put all of our weight into our palms and rip it. We're gonna slowly, incrementally increase intensity. So we're gonna pretend like we have little weight scales under the top of our palms, and we wanna see the number on that weight scale slowly creep up. So let's start pushing through the tops of our palms, just 10% of your max effort. Just gently add some load to that stretch. Push a little harder for 20%, 30, and 40. And we're gonna hold for 1 minute. At the start of these isometrics, if you've never done these before, I usually recommend starting at 30 to 40% for a long duration, like 1 minute. But as you'll see today, we're gonna ramp up intensity and decrease duration, which you can do in the span of a day and over time as well. So we're not gonna ramp up to high intensity today, but over time, as your wrist gets stronger, that would definitely be the move to make sure you're still progressing. And then there'll be hundreds and hundreds of ways to progress all of your wrist strength training as well. So about 30 more seconds here, still pushing through the tops of the palms, maintaining that pressure the whole time. We're gonna switch what we're engaging, and I'm gonna try to lift the top of my palm, so where these knuckles are on my hand, I'm gonna try to lift them off the floor. It's okay if nothing happens because we're in our end range, but go ahead, switch now, try to lift the top of your palm off the floor. We're in our end range, so nothing is happening, but you should feel like you've switched engagement, and now you can feel the top of your palm and some of these extensors working to try to lift your wrist and actively pull you into extension. You can take the weight off of your palms. We actually don't need it here since we're just engaging this shortened position. So if you want to take weight out if that's uncomfortable, the goal is to just actively be squeezing into this extension. Same effort as the last isometric, so really squeezing here, and we have 1 minute, so already over halfway there since I talk a lot. We're just gonna strap this up under our feet and create like a little bench with our hands. And we want it to pull us into extension. So as you can see, this is pulling my wrist into extension. This is gonna be too light. And the goal of this, maybe we're gonna do one at a time, because we're gonna do just the eccentric. So I'm actually going to use the lighter one, but I'm going to double it up twice. So it's pulling me into extension. It's not super taut. I want it to be taut, so I'm going to put it under my foot more. So now it's actually pulling my wrist into extension here. I'm going to help myself up to neutral, and then I'm going to fight this band pulling me down nice and slow. So if I wasn't fighting, it would just be like, whap, right? So I'm going to pull it up to neutral and then let it pull me down over the span of about 4 to 5 seconds. I'm helping myself up because I don't want my muscles to fatigue. I want to challenge more of like my tendons and connective tissue. That's a choice. You could absolutely choose a lighter band that you could lift up easily and you could challenge the muscles of your arm too. When we're talking about like injury and pull and all the crazy shit we do, our connective tissue adapts slower. And tendons really love eccentrics, which is what we're doing. Eccentric means that we're challenging the lengthening tissues right now. But you could absolutely do the full wrist curl if you wanted. This is just my choice. It's a little bit lighter and easier to start with. But as you progress through all of your wrist strength training, of course, I would do both in some manner. So once we get nice and tired, say about 10-ish reps, then we'll just switch sides. Hopefully it feels like a challenge and that you could only do a few reps on the way up. So that this is pretty hard because we're stronger in our eccentric than our concentric. And then we gotta do it again. We'll go higher intensity, lower duration. Back to whatever position you were in before. Find that stretch on the back of your wrists by taking your wrists into their max extension. So the further you walk them back, the further extension that you're gonna have. And go ahead and start pressing the palms into the floor, 10% of your max effort. Ramp up to 20, 30, 40, and 50. And we're maintaining this pressure. And switch, we're gonna lift the tops of our palms. Try to think about squeezing the top of our palm to that forearm into extension. Actively pulling the palms up back to our band for our 10 eccentrics on both sides. Back into your end range. This is our last set, so hopefully we've really opened up some wrist extension, so really find that stretch. If you've opened up space, we don't want to be here when we could be here. So load up, not load up, find that stretch. We'll load it up in a second. All right, end range, and go ahead and start pushing the tops of your palm into the floor. 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50. You're welcome to stay at 50, or we're going to ramp up, go to 60, and maintain that pressure. And switch. Pull the tops of your hands to your forearms, squeezing into extension actively. So in a goal, ideal scenario, if we're doing a lot of handstands, we should be able to actively move into this flat position where we would be in a handstand. If you're gonna start doing crazy calisthenic stuff where you have to have your wrists like this, then you're gonna wanna be able to maintain that posture actively. And then we have one more set of our banded eccentrics. We're finished. We're just gonna do those cars one more time. So cars, if you've not been here before, are controlled articular rotations. It just means we're taking our joint through its full range of motion in a slow and controlled way. We're gonna start or finish just how we started. So palm towards the ceiling, neutral. I'm gonna go pinkies towards each other, scoop down, scoop it out, thumbs, squeezing thumb side, and then moving up into flexion, curl the wrists in, and then back to our flat side, and retrace.